Hi, I'm Nat.
And I'm Guy, and Bulgaria entering the EU Eurozone trap, as
Yes.
well as Donald Trump may have negotiated a deal with China. They're just finishing up the last details according to the White House.
And then more protests ongoing in the US and the craziness that's coming out about them. People are wising up slightly more than with other protests like the Summer of Love.
Oh yeah, we got a few stories on that. We're not going to go full to the wall on this one today because we've been going at it pretty hard the last couple of days. Okay, let's get.
And I just talked about it in Spanish for about an hour, so.
Yeah, I was surprised how long you talked about it. You were pretty passionate about it.
Well, yes.
Okay, let's go into the Bulgaria Eurozone trap.
So you definitely know more about this than I do, but this is from Balkan Insight. Take it with a grain of salt because I don't really know this media, but Bulgarian nationalists stir up opposition to 2026 Eurozone entry. Over 100 protests were held across the country over the weekend against Bulgaria's imminent adoption of the euro, most organized by the pro-Russia far-right party Revival, with President Rumen Radev offering his blessing.
Yeah, this is a bad thing for Bulgaria overall. It's good for the elites. The elites are going to get their euro dollars, be able to do whatever they want with them and transfer them around the world. But as far as manufacturing and everything else into the country, it's not going to make Bulgaria a more independent country. It's going to be more reliant on not only the EU, but these globalists that control the EU.
So after more than 100 anti-Eurozone demonstrations happened across Bulgaria during the weekend, President Roman Zaev on Sunday spoke approvingly of protesters who he said were expressing their free will by opposing the adoption of the euro and the abandonment of the national currency, the lev, which they claim represents a loss of national identity.
Yeah, and it definitely does. This is what the EU is all about, is taking away the identities of these countries, flooding it with Muslim immigration, things like this. But the way they get control over these countries is through the EU banking system. They kind of trap these countries, force them into voting the way they want. So it's a very manipulative system. A lot of these EU politicians aren't elected in, so it's very hard for the people to make changes. You're seeing a separation between the political elites in these countries and the people. Now, some countries like Hungary, Italy, things like this are kind of doing what the people want, but a lot of them aren't, especially in Western Europe.
And also it is worrying for anybody within the EU that, for example, Ursula von der Leyen keeps saying that we have to remove free speech from people, that speech is dangerous, that people shouldn't speak up, and also that coordination amongst the EU countries should be tightened even further regarding matters of CBDC, so central bank digital currencies, digital IDs, and more things that would essentially give government more and more power, not just governments of those countries, but the EU government itself.
Yeah, there was some announcements today about EU digital currency as well. So, okay, let's go into the next story here. And this was President Trump. I seen this morning when I woke up.
And you don't want the long clip, right?
No, I accidentally pulled a 20-minute clip from the Duran for the Bulgarian story. If you don't watch the Duran, it's an excellent show. Both of the hosts from the Duran, are the two Alexanders. They have their independent stations as well. I watch them daily. They can be really dry and long with their independent content, but when they come together, they make it a lot shorter, and it's a little bit more interesting for your average person that isn't as into politics as I am.
I know their voices by heart and I can recognize it whenever he turns them on because that's basically all Guy has been listening to for the past few years. And
Not all I've been listening to.
They are very boring, but there's a lot of information they give as well.
Good analysis.
Sure.
Good independent analysis,
yes,
I'll say.
But dry.
Okay,
let's go. This is from Benny Johnson saying, breaking, President Trump announces the deal with China is done. So Donald J. Trump says, our deal with China is done, subject to final approval with President Xi and me. Full magnets and any necessary rare earths will be supplied upfront by China. Likewise, we will provide to China what was agreed to, including Chinese students using our colleges and universities, which has always been good with me. We are getting a total of 55% tariffs. China is getting 10%. Relationship is excellent. Thank you for your attention to this matter.
Okay, yeah. What I got to say about this, I don't necessarily agree with all these Chinese students coming in, but he leveraged it as part of this deal. I am pretty deep into Chinese politics. There's somebody I follow named Lee's Real Talk, I believe it is. It's the Chinese woman that talks internal politics of the Chinese government. She has pretty good takes. She kind of uncovered the real population of China, or suspected population of China, which isn't what it may seem. That being said, there has been a lot of rumors coming out of China of a coup, and a lot of people kind of being taken out in the current Xi administration. So I think with the tariffs and these negotiations, it was putting a lot of pressure on opposition parties to kind of oust Xi. With this deal coming around now, I think it's going to help the Chinese economy, and it's going to re-solidify his position within the government, and the people that are kind of pulling the knives out to come after Xi are going to kind of back off now. At least that would be my suspicion. My radar was kind of on high alert over the next 60 days. They were kind of expected to oust Xi. I don't think it's going to happen now. What do you have to say about this?
Sorry, I was trying to.
Sorry, that was kind of internal politics into China, but.
Yes. I mean, I haven't really looked into this, I'll be honest. But at least it seems maybe tensions are cooling.
Well, and this is a huge deal if this deal actually gets signed and the final little details get worked out, because the Chinese and American economy are kind of going to put some economic security back into global trade, even if countries start to nationalize here. So this is one of the biggest trades. People said this was going to take years for it to come about. I think they were able to get it in such a fast fashion, again, because of the pressure that was being put on Xi from opposition parties inside of China. This is the kind of deal that would have normally taken 3 to 5 years to kind of negotiate. They were able to, it looks like, get it done, at least temporarily.
And it's interesting that they're emphasizing a lot the whole Chinese student visas and universities, because, I mean, it has been suspected, I'll just say that way, that a lot of those students were actually there for other reasons as well, and to take things back to
Yeah, but I'm not so mad about that. I am against that. I've talked about it openly, how the CCP is sending in students, gathering the information, like you said, taking it back to China, and that's how they're making these technological leaps. That being said, Trump has negotiated to let them in, which is fine, because then they can go and change the individual policies of the schools. So it's a way to get a good deal to kind of secure the economy right now, and then maybe go to the individual institutions and kind of put in new
guidelines.
Yeah, guidelines and policies.
Okay.
Okay, let's go into, what do we have next here?
Poland being based.
Oh yeah, this was really based, and we can watch it here. And the whole Eastern Europe is turning against LGBTQ and the rest of this
Does it have
stuff.
sound or no?
Yeah. Let me grab my headphones.
So, new Polish MEP Grzegorz Braun destroyed an exhibition promoting LGBTQ ideology in the Polish parliament today.
And let's remember it's Pride Month, so I'm sure something was going on in Poland.
There's a lot of them.
Oh, he's not gonna, wow, there is a lot of them.
And there's
Oh,
kids
the
there.
kids were booing.
One was waving.
Yeah, the one who was kind of putting his thumb down.
So we know how deep it goes in Poland.
Well, no, I think he was in support of
Oh,
what
of
he's
this?
doing.
Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't see that kid.
Panie pośle, przywołuję pana do porządku. Proszę nie niszczyć wystawy. Przywołuję pana do porządku. Niszczy pan mienie.
Oh, you
Okay.
got a lot of news cameras around him.
And good for him. They need to clear this crap out of government. If there wants to be LGBTQ supporters within the country, that's fine. But we just seen in Canada these pride flag raises with the government and all this media exposure in schools. They're having this flag raising day in Pride where they're forcing the kids out to this flag raising and indoctrinating into an ideology, which isn't a nationalistic ideology. It's something that's a lot different.
And I mean, I don't super agree with the destruction of property, but I mean, proving a point and proved a great point as well. Also, why are these things embedded into government? Why is government so in support of all of these ideologies that we keep seeing popping further and further in, I mean, just public life? Here in Mexico, they are planning to make the biggest LGBTQ flag in the town square, in the city center, where the main office building of the government is, and they're planning to get a lot of people to come and dance and etc. But why are we wasting resources and efforts, especially in countries like Mexico, on that when there's more pertinent things to be focusing on?
And this is one of those 80-20 issues. When they started transing kids, putting males and female sports, things like this was an easy 80-20 issue for conservatives in general. But it was a fringe radical issue that didn't really affect everybody in their daily lives, although there was a lot of anger and outrage on it. This immigration issue, especially in Europe now, is that new 80-20 issue, but it is touching everybody in Europe, and the population is no longer for immigrants within the EU, at least illegal immigrants within the EU. So this 80-20 issue of immigration, which is going to be coming to the forefront now, it seems like they're abandoning this LGBTQ stuff and putting up immigration as this progressive liberal ideology that's supposed to convert the world. But what they don't realize is the people are against it and the elites are for it. So this is going to further divide the people from their governments. And the only real person standing up against it right now is Donald Trump actually taking action. Some of these other EU leaders are saying they're against it because they just want to get voted in, but behind the scenes, they're pushing more and more immigrants through their borders if you're looking at the statistics. What is going to happen here is Trump has a real opportunity to not only become the president of the United States, which he already is, but kind of the leader of the free world. I'm expecting in a lot of these immigration protests and things like this from nationalists within Europe to really start holding up pro-Donald Trump signs. We've seen that in his first administration, actually. So I would expect that to kind of come back.
And a lot of the hate and TDS, or Trump derangement syndrome, is going to come back and bite a lot of people in the butt because of what the public sentiment actually is. I mean, even in Canada being what it is, most people are starting to speak out against this unfettered massive amounts of immigrants legally that are coming in while the government doesn't try to do anything to fix circumstances for the people already living there. And I think more and more people are realizing the consequences of these massive globalist plans that they've had for decades now. And we're seeing the consequences happening now differently in Europe than in the States in certain ways. But all in all, the 80-20 issue and the messaging that both sides are putting out are going to trend people towards one side way more than the other one. Maybe
let's talk about why this is an 80-20 issue. Statistically, it's about a 75-25 issue, not a pure 80-20. But over 95% of traditionalists are against this mass immigration movement that's kind of happening with illegal migrants coming into these European countries. But half of liberals are divided on this issue, and if you know liberals that actually speak honestly, that are more moderate, that follow political statistics. I was watching today, they're like, well, liberals only really fall 50-50. You have the progressive wing that is all for it, and then you have the non-progressive moderates that are really against it. We've shown Barack Obama for decades, even the progressive liberals that were in power were against massive immigration that was illegal. They were for legal immigration against illegal. So this is a fringe issue, and I don't think the progressive liberals worldwide understand that.
Yes, and the public sentiment of people, because they've also made it in many countries as well, essentially illegal to talk about the issues from the people themselves saying what they actually think about this because it's racist and it causes anxiety and etc. Like in the UK, where they'll arrest you if you cause somebody anxiety over a social media post where you're just giving your opinion and telling the truth.
Yeah, this is, I think when this starts, after this weekend, this issue is going to really ramp up in the U.S. media, but they don't realize it's ramping up globally. This is a global issue. The citizens are on the side of they're for legal immigration, against illegal immigration, and this is going to destroy liberalism on a global scale. The trans issue didn't really do that. It really affected America and some countries in Europe. This is on another scale completely. This is going to completely destroy progressivism in Europe.
Or it might make them switch and flip and turn into something completely different as well. But we saw yesterday that clip from the guest Joe Rogan had, where he was explaining even how they were going to try to move away from the LGBTQ stuff and the rainbow stuff, which we're seeing. I mean, less corporations showing rainbows everywhere, less support for those corporations that still do, and people essentially just getting tired. But now the new cause celeb, the new thing everybody has to care about is the plight of the criminal illegal immigrants that are being caught in raids.
Yeah, and it's interesting. Before these protests kind of took place, the sentiment was, at least in the American public, and I follow it very closely because I do a lot of American politics, was we need to get rid of the illegal migrants, the criminal migrants that have criminal records. Mm-hmm. After these violent protests that have already occurred for 5 days, and you have big protests coming up this weekend, it's already starting to shift that all illegal migrants got to go, whether they have criminal records or not. And I'm just talking about the United States right now. The sentiment in Europe is different. It's a different situation because it's Muslim migrants within those countries, and there's a lot of different aspects within European mass migration because they've legalized a lot of what should be illegal immigration into Europe, and they've legalized it. Mm-hmm. Okay, let's go into the next segment, and I believe you had this on your other show right before us.
Yes, give me 1 second. Let me just read one comment and then bring something up to maybe talk about that comment. Okay, let's just hope. Oh, I can't find it.
Okay, let's go into the article.
Hold on. So Rafa says, based, wish I had the guts to do the same in here about the Polish guy being based. And then Walker is asking, and this is why I was trying to pull up an article about it.
I don't even have all the comments here.
Guy, did you hear that? Cristina Kirchner, an icon of the left in Latin America, is going to jail. And I believe Claudia Sheinbaum showed her support for her.
No, was that the clip that you played earlier on your show?
No.
Oh, okay.
But I'm trying to find...
I haven't heard of her. Who is she?
She was one of the main instruments in Argentina who fomented a lot of leftism throughout Latin America.
No, I have no idea, actually. So Walker's one up on me today.
So we might bring it further now, but I just wanted to show Cristina Fernández de Kirchner. I'm trying to find an article in English. Probably won't be able to, but...
and let's go into the next story because it's an important story, and you keep trying to not pull it up here.
I'm not trying to not pull it up.
Okay, let's pull it up so I can talk about it, then you can do whatever you want on the computer.
Well, no, because you need it pulled up in the computer, so I can't use the computer. So this is from Alex Jones. I did speak about this in Spanish. I'll speak about it again in English.
Just read what Jones said here.
And that's the worrying part for me. So the narco terror terrorist-controlled Mexican government is now publicly promoting a plan to annex the southwest of the United States. President of the Mexican Senate said today, idiot Noroña said, we'll build the wall and pay for it, but we'll do it according to the 1930 map of Mexico. Mexicans were settled in these territories before the U.S. The Mexicans living there are in what has always been their homeland.
Yeah, and I came up with the theory late last night, actually, and I was telling you, and you laughed it off in the beginning, but then I went through the talking points of this is becoming a seriously dangerous situation for Mexico, and I'm just going to line some dominoes up here, so it may take a moment. First of all, Trump is pulling out of these overseas wars and these like Ukraine. He's trying to get out of the Israeli war and things like that as well, but he's pumping a lot more money into the military with this big, beautiful bill. he has to feed the military-industrial complex with contracts. The way he's going to be able to do that is this Golden Dome missile defense in the United States, but also a war with Mexico against the cartels specifically may be what they're kind of looking at here. And they're lining up the dominoes for this. And I'll just kind of put it forth here. What he has is, first, he declared cartels a terrorist organization. After that, they're having cartel members within these protests. They're having boom booms on the ground, Molotov cocktails, corporations funding this stuff. They're doing investigations into these corporations. If any of this stuff they can attach back to Mexico, it's not going to look good. Then you have Mexican politicians, even if they are crazy, the American public doesn't know that. The American public doesn't know that people in Mexico maybe don't take this politician seriously. All they know is this Mexican politician is in power, and he's talking about an invasion of the United States in a sense. People on the ground, the protesters on the ground, are openly talking about taking over California and that Sheinbaum is their real president. So this just, with all these dominoes kind of connecting, also they have connected people in the current governmental administration in Mexico with the cartels and revoked their passports, which isn't a good look. It looks to me like the United States is lining up the dominoes so they can put pressure on the Mexican government and say, you're either going to assist us or we're going to come here by force. We already have the right to do so because you've begun an invasion on the country. So this is going to be Mexico really needs to stay out of this immigration issue in the United States, because the more they open their mouths and talk, the more gun fodder they're giving the U.S. government if they ever do want to come in here. So
Exactly. And I mean, once it's kind of explained further, it makes sense. Do you want me to play and translate, or?
You don't. Oh yeah, it's in English.
It's in Spanish.
Yeah, oh yeah, but it's an English program, so yeah.
And just so people know, this guy is pretty much hated by everybody except people in Morena.
One moment, there may be some new viewers or people watching us on replay. We do broadcast from Mexico City. We do live in Mexico.
I'm Mexican.
She's Mexican, even though she doesn't look like it. So this is a serious issue to us, and I hope this doesn't happen. But the U.S. government has been talking about coming into Mexico for a couple of years now, and this is the first time they've really lined up dominoes to strategically say they would have the right to do so. They're not doing that yet, but they're lining up all the pieces.
And these idiots don't really realize it when they keep opening their mouths. From Morena, which is a political party here in Mexico. And I'll just reserve comments from that.
Yo estuve en la Torre Trump cuando decía el presidente electo Donald Trump estaba 16 días de tomar protesta por primera vez como presidente, asumir el cargo. Y yo dije, si hacemos el muro, sí lo pagamos. Pero lo hacemos con el mapa de...
Just mute it and then read it to the audience if you can, because a lot of people are going to be listening in their headphones probably.
Okay, so what he's saying is that he was at Trump Tower when Trump said they were going to build a wall, but he said, we'll do it according to the map of Mexico from 1830. This is what the United States was in 1930, and this was...
1830.
1830, and this was part of Mexico. It wasn't all Mexico. If you can see, maybe a third, at least a quarter of the North American territory was part of Mexico until 1846. We were stripped of these territories. We were settled there before the nation of the United States, now known as the United States. The Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo establishes rights for the people settled in those territories which were not respected. The city of Nuevo Laredo was a Mexican city. And the city of Nuevo Laredo was formed by the Mexicans who lived in Laredo and didn't want to stay on the United States side and came over to what is now national territory. With this geography, how can they talk about liberating Los Angeles and California, the United States government? Liberate them from whom?
Okay, we can stop it there. These are serious talking points. It's not just him. And when I first brought this up last night, you said, well, they take him as a joke anyway. They kind of want to oust him out of government. This stuff is showing up all over X, not from just him. There are actually well-edited, high-production videos showing these same maps and using these same arguments. So, and there's protesters on the ground are reiterating these arguments. These are dangerous arguments because, yeah, I can even agree it was once Mexican territory, but a lot of territories were other countries' territories. And if you go try to take that back, or you even start using rhetoric of taking it back, and then you have these militants on the ground causing riots in cities, you're not going to beat the U.S. in a war. So if you want it back, you can expect, if you need to take it back, it's not going to work out well. It's best to negotiate a tariff deal and not start talking about you want parts of the United States back. If that happens, like I said, there's a lot of other dominoes the U.S. is currently lining up to justify an invasion of Mexico if the Mexican government doesn't want to cooperate, and it's not a good situation right now. It's not at that level, but like I said, the dominoes are lined up. So I would like to hopefully see these Mexican politicians just kind of be quiet about the immigration situation in the United States right now.
Other than saying that they support the migrants there, which they have tried to come out and say. But I did a whole video in Spanish about the origins of the word Latinx, which is ridiculous. But within it, I also did some research into this whole mysticism about Aztlán, or getting back Aztlán, which is a movement that has been happening in the Chicano communities of the U.S., especially around California, about this mythical place that the U.S. owes Mexico because they stole it. No, it was taken in a deal, but whatever. And that was also Spanish territory at the time, so or just had stopped being Spanish territory at the time. But
and 1 second, if they think they're going to get this territory back from the U.S. took the entire country at one point. So they would have to give back their entire country. That's not going to happen. And the U.S. is the most militarized country in the world. It's not a country that you want to try to take land back from.
Like, I honestly don't think even the politicians are actually being serious, or the protesters that are crying about colonialism and being colonized and being oppressed and victims. But it does give a lot of fodder to Trump or whoever wants to actually take them seriously and come do or take over or do whatever they want to do. So they are very dangerous talking points that I think a lot of people are not seeing. The rhetoric that is now coming out from parts of the conservatives and the right saying, well, we can use this as an excuse to actually further go after Mexico migrants, both legal and illegal, and now saying, well, we should get rid of all Mexican migrants if they do want to come take over the U.S. So it's not that I believe them when they say these things, but they don't realize that by saying them, they're giving so many cards to the other side to actually do things.
Well, we also have to realize the protesters on the ground are not illegal migrants. They're primarily not the ones. Yeah. The people on the ground that are protesting are these far-left radicalist groups. And the problem with that is it looks like to the American public and the American government that these are actually illegal migrants. That's what it looks like on the news and everything else. So as they say these radical things like we're taking back the United States as part of Mexico, Sheinbaum is our government, these are radicalists saying this, but it's getting painted as the illegal migrants are saying this. So that's why the sentiment in the United States is kind of shifting. It's somewhat worrisome because the radical left are using these illegal migrants for their political will and to create chaos within the United States. Mm-hmm. I'm really worried about this Friday and Saturday. I've stated that. So
yes. And also, again, the rhetoric that is coming against actual Mexicans by either descendants of Mexicans who have a U.S. passport, have been able to enjoy the liberties and the commodities and the comfort that they get from living in the United States, from parents that maybe did go through the efforts, or grandparents who decided to go over there to try to find a better chance in life for their kids or their grandkids or whatever. And now they're espousing all this rhetoric, not realizing that they're actually putting in trouble not just themselves, but everybody else.
Yeah, I don't think the Mexican government understands what's going on here. They're kind of putting them in a corner, and they don't even know they're being cornered, because once this situation's kind of handled in the United States, they're going to want to come in here and go after organized
Bad people.
And they're going to want the Mexican government to assist them. If the Mexican government says no and they give them a hard no, they're going to line up all the dominoes and said, well, you did this, and this. We have the right to come in here now.
And you're supported this, and this. I mean, Chris.
It's not that I agree with that or I disagree with that, but this is going to be the game plan of the U.S. government.
Mm-hmm. And they're just giving them all the cards right away. Kristi Noem is even now starting to say these things. A lot of other prominent public figures in the U.S., be it political commentators or that I usually agree with and I like and I watch, etc. That's why I keep saying it's not real Mexicans that are doing this. It's actually American citizens whose parents were Mexicans or just idiots from Antifa and other organized criminal, I'll call them, groups. But it's actually causing more issues for the people they're trying to help. And that's why I say they're not really trying to help them.
And we have to remember before we move on from this, the U.S. government has already classified these organized gangs within Mexico as, how would you say it? Terrorists. So that being said, the fact that they have that classification on them and then all this stuff is ramping up, it's easy. They have less justification to go into Afghanistan. So the fact that they've lined up the dominoes to the point similar to a situation in Afghanistan, it's a little concerning. Let's go into the next story, though.
Should I read comments or no?
Oh, yeah, if there is any.
So Rafa says, sometimes I don't see all comments too. Walker, did you block me? Usually on YouTube, there's two options. You can see top messages or all messages or live messages. Just
Walker's, he's coming up now. I see
press
him.
the all messages. Walker says, no, didn't mean to. Hi. How can I even block people here on YouTube? And now they're saying hi to each other. Yes, make friends. I like it when people make friends in the comments. Now, Amber says, why didn't Democrats want us to elect a president who is out on bail and who was found guilty of felonies? Trump was also found liable for abuse and fraud. Why don't Democrats like that? Amber Hart, if there is another consecutive quarter of negative GDP growth like last quarter, a recession will be official. The last thing any Republican wants is a Trump recession. Anything on that?
No, I would expect Canada to go into a recession before the United States. And even if the United States does hit a recession, we have to remember he's negotiating a lot of contracts. The fact that he has this thing worked out with China now is a big piece of the puzzle if they do finalize it. So a short recession, because he is negotiating contracts on a global basis to restructure the world economy, I think can be expected maybe. Mm-hmm. But I think they would come out of it on the other end.
And then an important message from Rafa saying, I've been better. I'm in the hospital because my wife is sick. Please pray for her health. So lots of prayers and hopefully everything gets resolved and it's nothing super serious. And all our hearts and all our thoughts are with you and your wife because you've been amazing to us. And
that's horrible to hear.
Yes. So hopefully everything turns out okay. And
what are you doing watching our show?
Better days. Yeah, what are you doing here? Unless you're on the waiting room or something. But
I'm really
sorry
to hear that.
Yes,
wow.
And thank you for being here. And seriously, she'll be you and her will be in our thoughts.
I couldn't even imagine because when my dog gets sick, it's hard enough. But imagine if it was you, Yeah.
Not a fair comparison, but yes.
No, but I'm just saying if it was you.
It's happened to you. I mean, I've had to tend for you at the hospital before as well. So nothing super serious.
Thanks for tending to me.
Nothing super serious, but I understand. So seriously, hope everything goes okay. And Walker says, oh man, I'm sorry to hear about that. Of course, I'm going to pray for her health, as we will all. Walker also says Chango Leon didn't take Diplomacy 101, which is the guy that we just watched, Noroña. Nobody likes him. Nobody serious in Mexico likes him. Walker says we're going to give that territory back to the natives, then to the animals that inhabited it, then to the extinct animals that inhabited it before, and so on until the perpetual descent into madness.
Yeah.
And that's I can't say that word. That's the R word argument that a lot of them are trying to use. That when do we stop trying to give reparations and territories and etc.?
Maybe I do want to talk about this a little bit because what's going on in Alberta is a separatist movement from the citizens that want to vote to leave Canada. That's a peaceful way to do it. They're not saying we're going to take this back by force. They're using legal means in order to do that. If the people of California want to do something else, they can actually do that because the United States is based on a, what do you call it? a republic, where each individual state agrees to be in that republic, and at any time they can separate, they do have the legal means to do that. So if California wants to do that, they should do that by legal means and vote, not by force. When they start talking about doing it by force, this is where things can escalate with the federal government.
Even if it's random rhetoric that shouldn't be taken seriously, they can take it seriously. That is the thing. Like, even though there's idiots and Antifa and the communists and etc., the ones that want to return to Aztlan, the mythical land of Aztlan, even if they're just saying it and think it's a good like talking point to yell out, I mean, when they take you seriously, you're not going to want to see what's going to actually happen.
No,
And especially to the people
especially when especially with a foreign government echoing that right on your border, like it might look like something to the average person in Mexico, or even to me, I can see that it's not a serious situation, but the U.S. government only is going to take these as talking points to a means to an end to get what they want. They're going to pressure the Mexican government to kind of do what they want, and they're going to use these things as examples.
Yes.
Okay, let's keep going.
Also, Jessica Ramirez, the Morena's politicians believe that they can do the same, their same stupid political discourses that they do here to gain voters without thinking the reality of the situation and how serious it is that they're putting our country in. Like what a serious situation they're putting our country in.
Yeah, and I have been saying it, and I do follow the U.S. administration very closely, and not just the top tier. I follow everybody in that administration on a daily basis, all the statements they make, and them and Morena have been working very close behind the scenes. Sheinbaum has been saying something else out front and playing tough. Behind the scenes, she has been working with them. The American government is very happy with the cooperation they've gotten from Sheinbaum specifically so far. They are not happy with the Canadian government at all. So, but they are going to use these as leverage points to come to Sheinbaum and say, your country is a threat. You need to help clean this up with us. You need to let the U.S. military in. So I guess I'll just leave it there.
Yeah, it's all fun and games until it stops being fun and games, and you've given over all the talking points to the wrong side that you wanted to avoid.
And even right now, it's going to look like it's not that big of a situation. If things pop off like I think they're going to on Saturday and Friday night with these protests, this is going to become a very serious situation for Mexico.
Mm-hmm. And they probably don't even realize it because they can't see past their nose. Rafa says, thanks to everyone. I've got nothing else to do beside waiting and being sitting beside her side while she gets better. And hopefully she gets better. Hopefully it's nothing serious. I sat by her bedside, for 2-3 days, so I get it. And also our dog, I mean, yes, it sounds like a dumb comparison, but she was in the vet hospital for 5 days?
Yeah, and I don't think I ever did thank you for smuggling those puddings into the hospital when I was there.
He kept asking for vanilla pudding. He had some stomach issue that was solved. It wasn't super serious, but we didn't know at the time.
Yeah.
He looked pale white and he just did not look good. And he didn't even want to go. I forced him to. We lived across from the hospital back in Vancouver, but he kept begging for a vanilla pudding, bring me pudding. And there's a supermarket right next door. And he kept asking for it, which at least it was good that he wanted to eat. But I don't think the hospital staff would have been super happy because they were barely feeding him. He wasn't really allowed to eat at the time. So
those Canadian hospitals try to kill you, I'll tell you what.
Yes, they try to end your life via maid. So
if she can't eat pudding, bring her some pudding. It's a good little treat.
Yes.
Or maybe flowers.
Yes, but seriously, hopefully everything goes good, and we'll keep thinking and asking when it's pertinent to do so.
Okay.
Rafa also says, Jessica Ramirez, that's the worst side of giving power to clowns. Yeah, they'll make jokes with you and of you.
And I mean, Mexico is in a really good position. It's an emerging economy right now, everything else. So I really hope things stay stable here.
They stop being dumb.
Okay, let's go into the next story.
Also, the Mexican president, of course. I was going to get the clip and stuff, but she's not saying it in English, so it's just easier to read it. From early London, Mexican president criticizes ICE, calls for them to stop raids against Mexican illegal aliens living in the U.S. Redact there. Claudia Sheinbaum has said the U.S. should have a different approach for tackling the migrant crisis that doesn't involve involve raids or violence. Our position has always been one of defending Mexicans living in the United States, our permanent support. At the same time, we call for an approach that does not involve raids or violence, but rather addresses the issue through comprehensive immigration reform that acknowledges the role of migrants in the United States, especially those who have been working there for many years, she said. If she wants a permanent solution and wants to defend Mexicans living in the U.S., she should make sure that people stop leaving Mexico and make Mexico a place where people actually want to live and can prosper and not fear for their lives either.
Yeah, I mean, this is, I don't really think she realizes the situation can escalate in the United States. And if it does, there is going to be serious repercussions for Mexico. She's cornering herself, and she doesn't even realize it. This is not a good political move. She was smart when the tariff negotiations were going on. Very rarely did she speak up behind the scenes. She kept quiet and she negotiated behind the scenes. That was the way to play it. She played it perfectly, especially when you compare her to Canada. I mean, I'm not a big fan of Sheinbaum's progressive policies, but overall she has been doing fairly well in a lot of different situations. GMO corn, the negotiations for these tariffs, when you compare her to the Canadian politicians, things like this. This is one time I don't think she's really putting all the nuts and bolts together here and what this could mean for Mexico. So,
well, she's trying to continue the line of AMLO, Andres Manuel Lopez Obrador, the clown that when it was president before her and still essentially is through her, which was this kind of stupid line of, keeping hard against the U.S. However, he got mostly a little bit of Trump, but mostly Biden, who was another clown all of himself. But now, with all of this happening, I don't think she realizes the gravity of what her and her party are saying.
yeah.
And also, other parties in Mexico are saying the same thing because they're trying to seem like, oh, let's defend the illegal migrants, let's defend the rights of migrants, but they don't realize what they're actually doing is stoking tensions.
Well, they're trying to do what Mark Carney did in Canada and run a campaign against Trump because they know there's so much hatred for Trump here in Mexico.
Yes.
And it's going to hurt the long-term prospects of the country if they do that. I'm not just talking about a tariff. Like I said, I lined up the dominoes for everybody where this could kind of lead. Not that it is going to go there, but it could. This would be a time to be quiet about the internal politics of the United States. Mm-hmm. If they want to talk about it later, once things simmer down and then Mexico's not putting a target on themselves, that would be the better idea. Like I said, she's played it very well with the tariffs so far, and I wish she would do the same thing with this situation.
And here, again, I will continue to say, in case somebody's watching me that speaks Spanish or doesn't watch my other show, I'm apolitical, essentially, not apolitical. I have no party here in Mexico. None of the parties represent me. There is no real conservatism or even anybody leaning right. The PAN, the PRI, all of them, Morena, all of them suck. So I'm not actually speaking for or against any of them. I think they're all right now giving out statements that are bad.
Yeah, and not really saying there's not a conservative party. There's parties that claim they're conservative here in Mexico. They've just been so liberalized that conservatives look at these so-called self-proclaimed conservative parties as liberals now.
He's thinking of the PAN, the National Action Party, but they were just like center-right. They were never fully conservative or right. They just don't like abortion, and now they do. So
okay, let's go into the next story here.
Sorry. Okay, nobody else has said anything. Hold on, which one was it? 'Cause now I lost myself.
The next one is a 40-point.
Oh, yeah. I also showed this in my Spanish show, but it's interesting, the rhetoric that goes out and then the rhetoric that is true and what is being seen. And even this guy, this CNN analyst dude, was surprised by what he was saying and reading.
A lot of Democrats are surprised by this. This clip is going kind of viral, and these statistics have been out for a little while. People are very surprised at the actual sentiment, and we'll explain the sentiment in a minute, but it does make sense when you think about it. Mm-hmm. Okay, let's play it.
I'm trying to make it so CNN doesn't.
We can play the whole clip here. I know it's a little longer, but we'll pause it, talk a little bit throughout.
Start off on the fact that immigrant citizens, immigrant voters, foreign-born voters have gone tremendously to the right on this issue in 2024 and 2025 versus where they were in 2020. Closest to or trust more in immigration. You go back to 2020. Democrats, get this, held a 32-point lead on this issue. Immigrant voters were in the Democratic camp. Jump forward to 2024, 2025. Look at that shift, a 40-point shift to the right among immigrant voters. Republicans now lead on this issue by 8 points over Democrats, more so than any other group that I could find. The group of voters who became more
Okay,
hawkish
let's
on
pause it.
immigration.
And what happened between 2020 and 2024? Why was the shift? It was called, on the books at least, 11 million immigrants came into the country, which is an insane amount in 4 years. And man, they shipped them all around the country. They were actually messing with the electoral college. If you have illegal migrants in a state, they still count to the amount of population in that state. Based on the population in that state gets either more or less votes. So they were shipping them. The Democrats were shipping these people around to where they wanted more electoral college votes. If all the illegal migrants today were taken out of the country, the Republicans would hold a 27 more seats in the Electoral College, and it would make it impossible for the Democrats to ever win an election again.
And also,
Tim Pool was going over this today. That's how I know those statistics.
okay. And also, if you don't follow Tim Pool, follow him. But also, what was I going to say? Yes, a lot of people claim it's the migrants that have been there forever and are now citizens are pulling out the ladder out from under a lot of people. But now that they're citizens, they also realize the negative consequences of allowing anybody and everybody to enter through the door without proper checks, without proper vetting. Even people that had been already flagged as terrorist, terrorists were coming in. And of course, it becomes worrying, especially since you're an immigrant. You're worried that you'll also get painted with that brush, which is not happening as well.
Let's continue to play the clip here.
Where
It's
in
quite
fact,
long.
Immigrants themselves, immigrants who are registered to vote in this country.
So that's on that issue. How about how they feel about kind of traditionally, historically about Donald Trump?
Yeah, so, you see this shift and you go, what is going on underneath the hood? Well, take a look, Donald Trump. You remember when he first ran back in 2016, immigrant voters are one of his weakest spots. But look at this, Trump's vote share in presidential elections among, again, immigrant citizens, those who are registered to vote. Look at this. 2016, he got 36% of the vote. You go to 2020, 39% of the vote. Look at this in 2024,
And
all
pause
the
it.
way up to 40%.
And they made the distinction here of immigrant citizens versus illegal immigrants. Immigrant citizens poll even higher than this today. They want Donald Trump to deport illegal migrants because they went through the proper path and it was very hard for them and they did it. So they legal immigrants very often look down upon illegal immigrants for not taking the same path they did, number one. But number two, they're actually competing with the illegal migrants. They're the first ones on the front lines competing for jobs and the economy against those illegal migrants as well. So the legal citizens are the first to benefit as illegal citizens are exited from the country.
Mm-hmm. And again, also the rhetoric that has been surrounding illegal immigrants has also ended up splattering onto them.
7% of the vote. Some polls I looked at had him barely losing that vote. Some polls I looked at had him barely winning that vote. Again, there is no block of voters that shifted more to the right from 2020 to 2024 than immigrant voters. And Donald Trump, at least in some surveys, actually won that vote. On average, it's about equal. So
And
there
pause
may
it
be
again.
all this stuff.
And I'm just going to reiterate this point. The reason that he, in no other voting bloc, shifted more for Donald Trump than legal immigrants. And the reason for that is as illegal immigrants are exited out of the country, it brings up the wages of this migrant class because they very often hold the same types of jobs and things like this.
But also what should I call them? The migrant citizens with more, better jobs or more opportunities are also affected because they become targeted as well in a certain way, especially if the rhetoric continues to be.
Well, and maybe I'll say something a little bit controversial here, but the class of people that are affected the least when illegal migrants are exited out of the country are actually the elites and the people that own the corporations and things like this. The people that own the corporations and the businesses actually want the illegal migrants in the country for workers and things like this. And we have talked about in the past on how they were placing massive amounts of refugees and migrants into these corporations all across the United States. These corporations and that elite class really do want illegal migrants in the country. The
Because it's easier to violate their rights as workers as well.
Yeah, the poor and middle class are the ones affected most because it brings their job wages down the most.
And it brings up the wages.
That's why people shouldn't be surprised when the one group that shifted the most towards Donald Trump in the last election was legal migrants.
Mm-hmm.
Right about undocumented immigrants and Trump being harsh on them, but immigrant voters themselves have increasingly liked Donald Trump and have increasingly moved to the right on immigration.
Okay, well, this is good. We kind of got the gist of it, yeah. Okay, let's go into, I did put a few of the Los Angeles chaos that's going on here, so we can go into some of that now, I guess. And then we'll go into some other stories I have after.
Okay. So actually, this is not even LA. This is Georgia.
Oh, yeah, and I'm just kind of keeping us up on Georgia because, like I said last night, there is a huge Antifa presence in Georgia. But it is going to be interesting because the black population and the Latino population don't always mix. So Atlanta, Georgia is actually, I used to live in Atlanta, Georgia for a little while, and it's a huge, huge black population, one of the biggest in the United States. So I'm very interested to see if Antifa does come out in mass like they did during the BLM riots. Georgia is one of the key cities that in the BLM riots, Antifa did take over large parts of that city.
Hold on. Stop. Over there. Hammering it. Holy shit. Hold on. Stop.
Okay.
And again, sorry for the expletives and the bad words.
Well, that being said, this is just not regular violence like we're seeing in LA, although we're seeing similar things. It's just starting to ramp up in Atlanta. Yesterday was the first day. In the day, it was fairly peaceful there, but they're right away going after police vehicles, which is another step of violence above just going after regular vehicles that are on the street. Mm-hmm. When you start going after police in a violent manner directly, and this is some of the first actions these protesters are taking, it doesn't look good for the cause overall.
Yeah. And Walker quickly says, well, actually, most immigrants don't want the country they arrived to become the country they left, because that's precisely why they left it. Their countries in the first place. And that's also another talking point that now people are saying, oh, but that's racist to say, you can't say that. Yeah, it's true.
Yeah.
And they can see it more easily than the local population as well. As we were talking yesterday, I forgot her name, but there's a lovely Chinese immigrant lady that speaks out about this. She, I believe, now holds some sort of power in government, but she's really interesting to listen to, coming from China, telling all the little kids how communism isn't the best thing in the world.
Why is this the next article that's up?
I don't know.
Do you want to go into this one? This one was supposed to be at the end.
Oh, okay.
Oh, wait. Oh, no, this was correct. Sorry. I misread my notes there. Okay, let's go into this.
So from Mario Celaya, Canada is experiencing the largest mass exodus we've seen since 1967.
And one moment, and obviously that's true just by a first-person example. Me and you left Canada, and it took us 4 years to do it. We would have left a lot sooner, actually. Mm-hmm. So what's happening now is Canada's in a very weird position where people that live there their whole lives that are actually have the money to leave are leaving en masse, and they don't know what to do because their population is falling off a cliff. So they're having to import migrants. The migrants aren't necessarily either have as much money or knowledge of the country to make independent businesses and things like this. So you're losing high-value citizens and trying to replace them with mass migration, mm-hmm. which is hurting the GDP of the country and really putting that country in a very weird situation.
It's either the second lowest or the lowest GDP in the G20, I believe, or G7, one of those two.
Okay, let's play it. And I often show him this is a great resource for Canadian politics. He's well known in independent media circles.
This is not good. Canada is having a mass exodus. People are leaving Canada in numbers not seen since 1967. 106,134 Canadians left Canada, making it the highest departure since 1967, which represents a 3% increase from 2023 and a 17% increase compared to 2019. And one province is leading the charge. Take a guess which one it is. If you guessed Ontario, you nailed it. Nearly half of all Canadians leaving the country, they're leaving Ontario. That makes it more than Quebec, BC, and Alberta all combined. Canada has a massive affordability problem. Plain and simple. Weak laws, sky-high inflation, uncontrolled spending, and here's the craziest part. Nearly half of all Canadians voted for this. Again and again and again and again.
And as the demographic shifts and traditional Canadians that have lived there their whole lives leave and mass immigrants come in, it changes the voting bloc to a dramatic extent. So I had to leave because the Canadian government just stepped over every red line that I have when it came to transing children, when it came to compelled speech through pronouns. I mean, I can go on and on the list. Yeah, it's crazy how these things get voted in Canada, but the demographic has completely changed there.
Mm-hmm. And for me, I mean, I lived there for 13 years, and not to sound stuffy, but I was one of these high-value immigrants that went there, went to college there, then started working in the workforce, etc. And also, same exact story. They just stepped, and I saw the decline of it over. I mean, the first 3-4 years were fine, but then Trudeau gets elected, and everything starts going downhill year by year, to the point where, in certain ways, I feel safer here in Mexico than I did in Canada because of things that happened in Canada.
I brought this up a lot. I've worked with a lot of immigrants in Canada, but very often I was the only white person on the job, especially just before I left. I had 4 jobs and the immigrants themselves were sold a lie, and they do not want to be there, and they're trying to figure out how to go home, but they spent a lot of their money trying to get there.
Yeah. A lot of people sell their houses, sell their cars back in their home place so they can get enough money to go to Canada because they're promised all of these things. And the Canadian government has a very good tourism board that essentially highlights everything positive and nothing negative. And then they get there and they can't afford food, rent. They can't afford to even think about buying a house or a car.
Well, and a lot of these migrants, their dream is to have a family and have children, and they just have no way to do that once they get into Canada because it's completely unaffordable there.
Or bring their children over, and then they see the education system, and they're like, I don't want my kid learning this.
Okay, let's go into the UK government. And I believe we've talked a bit about this time and time again, but I just want to reiterate this and educate anybody that may not have seen the other episodes that we did. This is one of the craziest stories going on globally right now that even a year ago would have been, you're considered a conspiracy theorist for believing any of this. This has been planned and implemented for well over a year. So I wasn't a conspiracy theorist then, and I'm proven right now. So.
So from Wide Awake Media, the UK government recently greenlit experiments to dim the sun under the guise of averting a non-existent climate crisis. You can think whatever you want about that. The idea that a country this big in Northern Europe, by spraying its skies with who knows what, is going to affect the global climate and save us all is sheer lunacy. The ability of trees to grow will be stunted. The ability of crop yields to grow will decrease. And what you'll find across the board is that crop yields lead to less food.
Okay, let's play the video. This is a pretty good video he did. So.
All right, so this is happening, and you need to know about it. When I first saw this story, I thought it was a joke, but it turns out the very same government that can't fill potholes, that can't run trains on time, that has a failing healthcare service, where no one seems
Good. You don't need to see him. I want to see what's above him.
Okay.
Good.
to be able to get a doctor's appointment, with an economy on its knees, that very same government believes that it's now qualified enough to dim the sun. Now, I've always pushed aside geoengineering and chemtrails in the conspiracy loony bin, but to hear that the UK government has greenlit this and is going ahead in the next few weeks with tens of millions of taxpayer pounds going into it, I sat up and started paying attention. Turns out they want to spray these particulates into the sky to make clouds brighter to reflect sunlight back out to space. Now, as far as I knew, living in the UK basically all my life, the entire UK is already filled with cloud almost all the year anyway. And the idea that a country this big in Northern Europe, by spraying its skies with who knows what, is going to affect the global climate and save us all is sheer lunacy. And you know what's crazy about it? When you limit the sun's ability to have that light reach the ground, you're affecting plants' ability to absorb carbon naturally with those crazy things called trees and plants through photosynthesis. And so what you'll see happen through this loony government program is that the ability of trees to grow will be stunted, the ability for crop yields to grow will decrease, and what you'll find across the board is that crop yields will lead to less food, less security for its country, less food all around for other animals. And this is all, to me, just a Ponzi scheme for these people to get rich off of, where these scientists or this body or this organization is able to access tons of money from UK grant money to combat climate change. It's an absolute joke.
Yeah,
I'd prefer that to
hold on. We can
be
keep
spent
going.
planting trees and reforesting kelp forests and seagrasses and creating marine protected areas that actually do good. Excuse me for my controversial opinions, but this is nuts, and I don't see how the UK government gets to do this without the consent of its people. We're living in a cloud
not
world.
just
Let me know your
its
thoughts.
people, all the surrounding countries are going to be affected by this as well. And we've been seeing strange global trends happening where they're getting some of the coolest weather on record in Canada specifically recently, but the polar ice caps have been regrowing and at a record rate, not melting from 2021 to 2024. 2025 statistics aren't in yet. That being said, they may be feeling desperate to do things like this, not just in the UK, but to do it on a global scale so they can say, we're the ones that reverse climate change. We saved you. We saved you. Because of temperatures reverse on their own and they had nothing to do with it, what are they going to say then? Mm-hmm. Why do we need their authoritarian government and their carbon tax if they're not the ones that saved us?
And also, the consent issue was my main issue when I talked about it in Spanish and when we talked about it in English a few weeks ago. People have not voted for this. People have not given consent to whatever the hell they're spraying. They say it's aerosolized particles. Particles of what? What kind of aerosol? What's the mechanism of it entering into the human body? What happens with it? Has there been trials or tests about long-term side effects that this could have? What do they even know what particles are putting in the air? What will be the effect on waterways? What will be the effect on trees and crop yields and plants and animals as well?
And is there anything else that they're dusting the population with? We've gone over different things that they've dusted other populations with in other parts of the world. How do you know they're not going to do that in the UK? Mm-hmm. Okay, let's go over to RUMBLE now. And
we have one more on here comment, so I'll just read that one. Walker asks, Guy, did you hear that Greta Thunberg was arrested in Israel?
Yeah, I meant to cover that. It was actually really funny what happened with her, and they got her, but it didn't turn out so well for her because she was put on the Israeli boat, and as they were traveling back, they were giving her food and water, and she was smiling, and she should have rejected the food and water. She actually made the Israeli military look really good in that specific photo.
And then also, I mean, I saw her walking around the airport in Paris, I believe, or somewhere in France, where there's two officers next to her, of course. And then, she's just, her hands are by her side, but then when she sees cameras, she kind of puts them back as if she's being handcuffed, which she was not, but just shows the idiotic idealism of the radical left, I will call her. But yes, we're going to RUMBLE.
And before we go over there, because we are broadcasting on there already, thank you for the couple subscribers in the last couple of days. We're now at 63. We're trying to get to 100 subscribers on Rumble. Once we get to 100, we're official content creators, and we can actually maybe make a little bit of money on Rumble. But for now, we use it
twice now.
For now, we use it as a free speech platform. Okay, let's head over there.
Which YouTube doesn't like, which is why we don't say the name usually. So yes, goodbye YouTube. See you over on RUMBLE now.
Oh, it's pretty delayed on Rumble today. Oh no, maybe this is